Okay, Blazing What Is here, and this is What If Deku Was a Cyborg, Part 4, if I remember correctly. And here's a sneak peek at the next series, and to be blatantly clear, I'm not going to start recording this series until after I finish What If Deku Was a Cyborg. But here you go. This is what it is. That's another one. Okay. Let me make sure that... Yeah, okay. So, where we left off is at the beginning of the sports festival. And for those of you who didn't realize, someone in the comments, the only person that commented actually on the last part, which I believe was part 3, said not to give Deku One for All. So All Might is training Deku, but Deku does not have One for All. And again, feel free to give me suggestions on new machines to give Deku, because I have a limited imagination. And yeah, let's just get into it. So, the UA Sports Festival. I'm going to try to skim through most of this and end this video within 30 minutes, if at all possible, but, I don't want to make it too short. And so, we're going to keep going. And, so what starts off UA Sports Festival, Sports Festival starts off, everybody comes in, and Deku is the one who is asked to, do the whole speech thing, in which he gives a very inspiring speech about how it doesn't matter what your quirk is, how weak or how strong it is, it's about how you use it. It's about how you use it. So you shouldn't focus too much, basically saying you shouldn't focus too much on what your quirk really is, and try to think of outside of the box of how you should do this. And he's talking mostly to the students rather than anyone else, because he's looking directly at all the other students as he's doing this part of the speech. And as it's... don't mind that. That was a... that was a thing. Moving on. I need to turn off my notifications. I'll do it later. Moving on. After the speech is over, everyone claps, and is like cheering for him, because it was a pretty inspiring speech. I can't create an inspiring speech, so don't expect me to do that. Maybe some other time. Not now. And so, with that being said, he moves on to, let's see. He moves on to the obstacle course. And through the obstacle course, he just, Iron Man just as... Actually, you know what? They are all curious. Everyone talks to him about... because they haven't seen him in 3 weeks, because he hasn't really talked to anybody. But they're all curious as to how his arm is back. And he just says, well, my body is made of machinery, so I just... made a new arm and then reattached it, and then, attached it to, what was left of my left arm. And everyone's surprised by this because, he could just make new body parts. So even if part of him is destroyed, he could just remake it. And yeah. So he just Iron Man flies through the obstacle course. So he still ends up being first, and all the others still end up making it through. And I really don't know how to do any of this except for the, tournament thing. So that's gonna be what it is. It's gonna be what it is, and it is what it is, guys. And so, the whole, he has 10 billion points because he came in first. And he gets the same group of people to do it, except this time he's got a new upgrade. Those heaters and the coolers that are in his systems, he's upgraded them to the point where he could freeze an area. Think of it like, what are the two villains' names from The Flash that have the freezing gun and the gun that shoots flame, and basically an overrated flamethrower? Basically, those two villains, yeah, he could basically do what they do. So basically, he's Todoroki. Except he could do it from both hands. He could shoot either one from both hands, or either of his legs, because there's a cooling and heating system in there too. So he just freezes the floor, so when anyone gets near him, they just slip up. And the same teams end up making it, except Izuku's team comes in first. Obviously. And so things continue the way they do in the main series. And so the first one is Izuku versus Shinzo. And so right before they call them up, Ojiro tells him about the whole his Shinzo's quirk and how it's like mind control or something, and he thinks it's, if you answer his questions, kind of a thing, if you respond to his questions. And so he, she's like, thanks Ojiro, and he thanks Ojiro for giving him the advice. Oh, right, hold on, I wanted to do a thing with Izuku's voice.
Thank you.
I just think it's funny, so I'm going with it. I am also curious as to what kind of distortion it will actually do in this recording, because I know how I sound in real life is extremely different from how I sound in my videos. So, let's see how that turns out. Anyway, well, you already know how it turned out. Anyway, so he goes on, and, Shinzo does what he, does in the anime. He's just constantly asking him to do his questions. And he goes up, and he just walks up to Shinzo, and he whispers in his ear in this extremely deep voice that is clearly, like a voice modifier. And he says,
"You really shouldn't do that. It gives away how your quirk works much too easily."
And he just grabs Shinzo, and his arms fly off like rockets, and then drop him outside of the stadium, and then come back, and then reattach to his body. And then Midnight declares Midoriya the winner as he walks away, as Shinzo face palms himself for being so stupid, and as to not even trying to attempt to hide how his quirk worked. So from now on, Shinzo's gonna be like actually, training in fighting styles before the whole meeting with Aizawa and Aizawa training him so that he can disguise how his quirk actually works. Because I always found it stupid how he thought that he could just get away with it, But whatever. Like, he never thought about people, figuring out how his quirk worked and then just not responding to him. He just thought that, I could just aggravate them until they do talk back. But that doesn't always work, does it? And, yeah. So, here goes on to the next match. The next matches go to canon. The only ones I'm changing are the ones with Izuku in them. And so Izuku's constantly just melting Todoroki's ice. It's, the whole thing with Endeavor happened, and Izuku told him off. That wasn't the same, was it?
Told him off.
There we go. And all of that in the
super deep voice.
And yeah. So that happened. He does the whole,
it's your quirk, not his, you idiot.
Because Izuku is nice. He does see Todoroki as being an idiot, and he's like, stop being so stupid. You know what I mean? And eventually gets Todoroki to use his fire, which he's still canceling out with, his own, ice. And the battle continues onward and onward and onward until Izuku starts using, these crimson energy as he charges it up, and he says, hold on. It's hard to do this voice when it screws with my throat.
Solar Wrath.
No, that's the wrong one. Dang it. I believe the one I want him to use is called
Dual Cannon Solar Blast.
There we go. Because he's using both of his hands, charging them up at the same time. Laser sent to stun, obviously. As Cementos tries to stop them, but both their attacks go through. Izuku's breaking through Todoroki's attack, as well as all of the cement, and hitting Todoroki, blasting him into the wall and out of the arena. And with barely so much as a scratch on him, which actually he doesn't even have a scratch on him, because this is almost indestructible, and he was constantly countering all of Todoroki's attacks, so he wouldn't even have a scratch on him, really. So, without even a scratch on him, Izuku is declared the winner, and everyone's surprised, and Endeavor is both happy and pissed at the same time, because Izuku got him to use his fire, but at the same time, he still lost. Todoroki still lost, and without even putting a scratch on Izuku at that. So he's both pissed and happy, but mostly pissed. And moving on, all other matches go as they were, until the match with Izuku and Bakugo. Now, this fight, we all know who's gonna win. If you don't, then you don't know me. Which, why would you? No, unless you're watching this much later when I've posted a lot of other series. But continuing onward, Izuku turns one of his arms into a blade. I've already described what this blade looks like in a previous video, but in case you don't remember, it is a kind of curved blade, not like a regular sword. It's that just sticks out of his elbow region. And so the blade starts at his elbow region, kind of has a curved blade to it, and it is extremely sharp, and it looks as the same black metal as everything else, as the rest of his body. As he is now processing a paralysis agent, because I don't want to call it a poison. Poison seems too harsh of a word, so I'm going to call it an agent. So he starts working on a paralysis agent, and as he's constantly blocking Bakugo's attacks or just dodging him, eventually Bakugo would go for the howitzer, whatever it was called, because I forget. But you all know what I'm talking about if you remember the UA Sports Festival arc. If you don't, just go watch it. It's like the beginning of season 2, if I remember correctly. And it's you know what I'm talking about. And as he does that, Izuku is just about finished with his, just finishes with the paralysis agent, and it kind of leaks out the blade of the sword. And as he does this, he gives the slightest, so then Bakugo does his attack, but at the exact same moment as he's about to throw an explosion at him. So he throws the explosion at Izuku, right? And it did literally nothing. Because in the 3 weeks that they had, Izuku realized that no matter how, indestructible or, sturdy, I should say, how sturdy the material is, if it's thin, it can be broken pretty easily. As shown when the Nomu destroyed part of his mask. So he had it reinforced. So he made sure that it was a lot thicker every time it came and wrapped around his head. So literally no part of his body is so much as scratched by the explosion. And everyone is surprised, and Bakugo is both surprised and pissed. Just because, he's like, I can't even touch him when he lets me touch him. Even when he lets me hit him, I still can't do any damage. And so now Bakugo's in that really pissed off state, and then Izuku just uses the sword to cut the slightest little cut into Bakugo's left cheek. As Bakugo falls down unconscious. And yeah. So that happened. And Izuku is declared the victor. Blah blah blah. We all know how it happens from here. Bakugo surprisingly accepts second place, but vows to become even stronger. And then Todoroki got third place. Was pissed. And then Tenya gets the call from his parents, the whole thing saying that his brother was injured severely by Stain and he'll never be able to walk again. That whole conversation. And moving on to the next arc. They all choose their hero names. Izuku chooses the name Axel, the cyborg hero. If any of you think that Axel is short for something, it's not. If any of you can come up with something that it is short for that makes sense for Izuku's character, please give it to me. I want to know. Please post in the comment section. I really want to know. And Rinko's hero name, Scorpius. Predator hero, Scorpius. There you go. There you have it. You're welcome. Wait, hold on. Look at the speed on her. What? I didn't know scorpions were that fast. Apparently she's as intelligent as a scorpion, too. No offense. Just kidding, all the offense. Moving on to oh god, it's so hot. Moving on to the next thing. He is, I believe it is the hero killer arc. So they're doing the internships. The internships are next. And so we get to the internships, and I'm gonna say he said he was doing a few one-liners which made everyone laugh during the sports festival, during the final tournament, the final phase of the sports festival during the tournament. He made a few wisecracks at his opponents. It's while fighting them. And continues to, move forward. And then back at the present, so Sir Night-Eye gave him an offer. So, an offer for an internship. So he goes and interns with Sir Night-Eye for plot reasons. You'll see why in a minute. Now, you're wondering why. Why am I doing this now? Because that's who he did with the other thing when they went to hero agencies. And where he met Eri. And to that I say, if you already know all the information I just gave you, then you already know why I'm doing it now. Also, he's gotten this upgrade, but he's always had this. It's not really an upgrade because he's always had it. He's just never had a reason to use it. yet, and you're gonna find out what it is soon. And so he's on patrol with Lemillion, or rather without Lemillion. He's just on patrol by himself, and Lemillion's patrolling some other part of the city. And he goes, and so he's going, and this little girl, now y'all see where I'm going with this, named Eri, comes at him and asks him to help her, and he does this, and there's no one else in this area. Like, there's no one else on this street, which is weird. But he does sense one life form approaching, and it doesn't seem friendly. In fact, it almost seems as though it's walking with anger. And he doesn't, and so he's just starting to think that maybe it's like an abusive father or something. So he goes and he uses this thing that he basically turns his body invisible, or rather the back of his body invisible, and he covers the girl with his body, and Overhaul, if you didn't know who it was, Overhaul just walks straight past him, not realizing that he was there. And he gets pissed because now he doesn't see Eri anywhere. And he goes into a shouting match with some of his subordinates. And, says we need to find her quickly. Obviously, she's already gone. Some hero probably got her and took her away, so we need to find her now. Oh, and he goes and runs off in the same direction they came from. And once he senses that there's no one anywhere, he goes anywhere nearby within hearing range or sight. He talks to her and he says, "So then, was he chasing you? You know what? Just come with me. I'll make sure you're safe." And he says it without the whole deep voice. Nah, my throat's fucked up from doing it for too much. There it goes.
Without the deep voice.
He does it without that. He does it with his normal, kind, gentle voice. And she says, okay. And she goes with him, and they go to Sir Night-Eye's agency, and they basically put her in, witness protection. So she's put there, but she's nice to Deku and all that. And now a few days have passed. As Izuku has gotten more experience in the actual world of heroes through the whole internship. And he goes and he looks at what's his face? Oh. Still don't know what solo leveling is. Please, someone tell me. I don't know where to find it. But as we continue on, some people are asking for help in the Hosu area. And Izuku's like, Ida's there. He might need some. So maybe it's the agency he's working for. I could go help Ida out. So he volunteers to go and help them out. Which Night-Eye sees how, powerful and well-trained Izuku is, because again, he's always connected. He has access to anything connected to the internet, including all the, latest fighting techniques. So if you've ever seen Big Hero 6, he's basically Baymax. He has the chip. It's basically like having a chip with every single, like, fighting way of fighting, like, downloaded into his body, and his body just goes through it naturally, or rather unnaturally, because robot. So it's just anything that uses his thighs that he actually has to train with. So anything dealing with mostly upper body, he can do pretty easily. The only thing he has to train with is his legs, because his thighs aren't mechanical. And so, he goes to Hosu, and this is purely so I don't have to kill Ida off. So, he goes, and he helps Ida, and it is Ida's agency that asked for help, so, which they're surprised to see Izuku show up, or rather, I already forgot what I called him. So, or rather, they're surprised to see the cyborg hero show up. But it's greatly appreciated because they saw how powerful he was. Like, he took a full-on explosion from Bakugo, which, like, was no small feat. That could have, like, that explosion destroyed most of this, like, a lot of the actual, like, stadium. Not to the crowd or anything, but it did destroy a lot of it. And he came out completely uninjured, so it's not like it's a surprise how powerful he is. And so, he's there, and he's paired up with a different team, as the Hosu incident still does occur, but instead, this time it is purely a show of power to get other people to join in hopes of finding either a replacement for Shigaraki or people who can help break Shigaraki out of prison. Which he's imprisoned in Tartarus, which is going to be a pretty difficult feat. But that's the goal here. But that's the goal that All for One is trying to do here. And so, the whole incident happens. Deku, in his fight with Stain tries to attack him, and his blades completely shatter across, Deku's body. They're just gone. And with that, Izuku just punches him into the ground, knocking him unconscious fairly easily. Because if you've seen Stain, that man is freaking... Oh my gosh, he looks like he hasn't eaten in several days. He looks frail. Like, not when he's... Like, when he doesn't have his swords out and is, like, using his sword techniques, that man looks frail as fudge. Man, trying not to swear. It's more difficult than it sounds. But, yeah. And Izuku's like,
well, that was easy.
And he goes up to Ida and Native, and he asks if they're okay.
Are you okay?
In this really deep voice. And, Native isn't going to be fine. Like, Native's severely injured already. And, Ida is gonna be fine for a while. He didn't land any fatal wounds on Ida. but neither of them can move, so they're trying to, but, Izuku has already, informed the police because, again, he could do anything in this freaking robotic suit of his. And so the police have already been informed. And he's already tied up. He's already created, he's already used part of his body to create temporary handcuffs for, Stain. And he lectures Ida about his stupidity and trying to take on Stain no matter what the reason for it was. And, Ida starts Ida understands that he probably shouldn't have done it, blah, 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 blah. Moving on. Now then, after this, I believe, is the final exams, both written and unwritten. So everyone's asking for a study partner, and everyone either goes to Momo or Izuku, or Senta as they know him, and asks them if they can help study. He says, I'll help you, but it would probably be, I'll help you if Momo, if we could all do it in one place, because I think it'd be better to have 2 people helping everybody than 2 different people helping certain groups. And everyone's okay with this, so they all decide that they're going to do it at Momo's house because it's the biggest. And so they do that, and everyone, did I get a... Oh. And so, yeah, that happens. Am I still recording? Hold on. Yeah, okay. And so they do that. They go to Momo's house, and they do the whole studying thing. Finals. So finals go pretty much the same way, except for Izuku and Bakugo's, as well as Momo and Todoroki's. Because before the practicals start, Izuku sees what's going on with Momo, that she's out of it, and he kind of actually, this would have happened earlier while they were at her house studying. Momo would have been, this is after most of the people left, Momo would have been left chatting with Kyoka and Rinko, who are her 2 best friends in the school, and the only 2 people she's really made friends with. And then he would go up to them, up behind them, and say,
"What are you talking about?"
In which all of them would jump out of fright, and see Izuku's guitar. This one. So,
what is that?
And he looks at it, and it has Izuku Midoriya written on it.
And why does it have my brother's name on it?
And both of them, and all 3 of them are like, oh shit. Well, you know what, maybe he can help. Well, because, it's his brother, and they tell him the whole story about how he left the clue, and he acts surprised pretty well, actually. And he continues, keeping up the whole act that he's like a totally different person. And I want you to keep in mind that most of his body looks like this at all times. He's not like covering it up with the whole skin layer that he has, because he wants to make it even more apparent that he's, a cyborg, and that there's no possible way that he could be Izuku, with this second hint that he's going to show, which I'll get to that probably in the next video. And I'm not ending it here, though. I'm going to end it after the final exams, after I'm done with the final exam fights. And, yeah, that's kind of just how it goes. And so he has now befriended Kyoka for the second time, but he's also befriended Rinko and Momo. And when, after that, Momo is left alone with Izuku, or rather Izuku is left alone with Momo after Kyoka and Rinko leave, and he says,
Momo, I want to talk to you. You seem down lately. Almost like you're lost.
And she's surprised by this because she thought she was hiding it pretty well, which, to be fair, she was, because no one else in the class realized it. And so he talks to her about how she thinks that she's, not good enough, and then he gives her a speech about, not a elongated speech, but a pretty short one, about how she is good enough and she should have her, failures lead to that. Failures are always a learning experience. If you choose not to learn from them, that makes you weak. But if you do learn from them, that makes you stronger. Like the song goes, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And so she has slightly more confidence, which is why I say the whole Momo fight goes differently. She doesn't really gain full confidence back until after the fight is over and they beat Aizawa. But it does go slightly differently. Momo does pose her plan to Todoroki, and it's just that Todoroki says that they should try his plan first, and that her plan can be the backup plan in case that it fails. Which slightly takes down her confidence, but when his plan fails and her plan succeeds, it's a slightly bigger confidence boost than it was in the actual canon series. So, yeah. As for the fight with All Might, as for the fight with Izuku and Bakugo against All Might, Izuku does the same thing to All Might that he did to Bakugo. It's just the creation of the serum of the paralysis agent is different, because this time he basically needs enough to stop a fucking elephant. Because that's just, All Might for you. So with the weights on, it was probably easier. So, he uses Bakugo as a distraction. He talks to Bakugo about creating a plan, and Bakugo says, I'll just beat him with brute force, and then Izuku slaps him and is like, no, that's the idiot's way of doing things. Let's use our intelligence. He's expecting you to do that, so let's do the opposite. And that whole thing. And he lays out an entire plan which basically allows Bakugo to fight All Might head on. without, taking away from the plan. It's like all part of the plan. And so while Bakugo gets to fight and see how big the difference between All Might and himself are, or Izuku comes from behind without All Might even noticing and does a slight cut across his back with the paralysis agent active, which sends him down to both knees, puts him on both his hands and knees, and then Izuku puts the handcuffs on him. And he's declared victory, and everyone is surprised because everyone just thought that, one, Izuku was invisible, and two, everyone thought he was just gonna run to the exit. After that, he gives All Might what is basically the antidote for, the paralysis serum. The paralysis serum didn't knock him out of his All Might form, it just stopped his movements for a while. And so he gives him the antidote so All Might could go off before, reverting back to his other state, because, as I said, he already knew about it. Stop giving me notifications, stupid phone. And so, basically, every other fight goes to canon. Whoever won, won. Whoever lost, lost. And, yeah. I'm going to end it there. I'm probably going to record the next episode right after I end this one. I don't even know how long this has been going, but I'm probably going to record the next one right after this one and then post it sometime next week. This one's going to be posted today. As of recording this, it's going to be posted the day I recorded it. But the next episode, I'm probably going to save until next week, because I'm probably not going to be able to record next week because wisdom teeth removal on Friday. And so yeah. Oh my gosh, stop doing that.